few technical difficulties. I'll fix those up real quick so we can get this live stream going. See, we've only got a couple people on right now, not too many. Hey, we'll take what we can get. Hey, Emperor of Rome, good to see you. Just submitted a comment there. Good to see you join the chat. I apologize for not throwing this out on Twitter. I'm pretty sure that you do follow me on Twitter, but I know we weren't able to get that out in time because kind of it's a spur of the moment type of thing. But good to see you. Glad that you're able to join us here for a little bit. Hopefully, we'll get some more people to join this chat here in a second, and we can get some good discussion going. But always good to see you. Let me respond to these messages real quick, and then we will jump right in to the chat. Comic Dude 45, good to see you. Good to see you. Glad you were able to join us as well. Two of my, I would say, favorite subscribers. Two of my favorite people that are joining the chats and have been very consistent here at the Gridiron Expert, the Emperor of Rome and Comic Dude 45. Good to see you guys both. As I said, I'm going to respond to these two messages here, and then we are going to get started on this live stream. Any questions or topics you guys want to discuss, throw that in the chat, and we will definitely take a look at those like we always do. But I have two things specifically that I do want to discuss tonight, and then everything else will be left up to the chat like we've been doing these past couple days. Hey Prince, good to see you. Good to see you. Always glad to see you back here. Another one of my fellow subscribers, one that's been very loyal, just like Emperor of Rome and Comic Dude 45. Good to see you. Hope you have some good insight for us, some good stuff to throw in the chat. Here we go. All right, we got a couple people in the chat right now, a couple likes. As Prince mentioned, smash that like button before we get going. Like he said, even if you join the chat, jump out, like it real quick, jump back in. Uncle Lou, getting a suit too. Hey, that's a good touch, man. It's gonna be a good touch for your channel as well. I'm always a big fan of the hat and the shades, though, but we do like to go to make it look a little fancier with the suit, just stand out a little bit. All right, starting off with Emperor of Rome. Before we jump into what I've got, we're going to discuss some of the early comments. Emperor of Rome, NFL question. Which two American cities should the NFL expand to next? In my opinion, the best choices are Portland and San Antonio. Very, very good question. Take a page out of this new Alliance of American Football, where they have these all those new teams set up. Not saying those are all, some of those cities already have, NFL teams or NFL teams near them. Portland would be a very good place to do it. The problem is, for an NFL expansion, you've got to think about how you're going to do that, because we've got 32 teams in the NFL right now. if you got two more teams, you could throw one in the NFC, one in the AFC, but then you've got to worry about divisions. All divisions are very equal right now. You got 8 divisions total, 4 teams in each. So it's a lot more difficult than just expanding a new team, because then you've got to really rearrange the way the divisions are going to be set up, which you have to add, 8 new teams, to compensate for, so every division would have 5. But say you didn't have to worry about that. Portland would be solid. That's a good place to do it. That's a city. A city that's already got an NBA team out there. You've got Seattle right above them with the Seahawks. Used to have the Supersonics, of course. So that would not be a bad option. San Antonio, Texas, man, I feel like Texas has already got enough as it is. San Antonio, of course, has the Spurs, very solid. Prominent NBA team there, but Texas itself has got, the Cowboys, they've got the Texans, they've got multiple NBA teams, hockey teams, tons of college teams. I don't know if the state of Texas needs another NFL team, although San Antonio, like I said, they just added, I don't even know what they are, the new AAF team. I don't even know what their mascot is or their name is, but that's certainly a possibility. Portland, San Antonio, you could look. St. Louis would be another viable option. I know they used to have the Rams. They just shipped back off to LA, but that was, they've got the room to do that. And St. Louis only has the Blues and the Cardinals, so NHL and MLB would not be a bad option to throw another NFL team back in St. Louis. You can look. I know people have talked about Omaha and Nebraska. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that, but that's certainly a possibility there. It's really just geographically, it all comes down to geographics and how you want to restate or how you want to realign these divisions if you have to. But Portland, San Antonio, St. Louis, Omaha, places like that. Tennessee's already got one. Alabama, the state of Alabama, because you got to think about the state as well, where you're going to put these and how much emphasis the state wants to put on. There's so much more that goes behind it. But those are some viable options. Great question. See what else we got here. Uncle Lou says, we don't have 32 quarterbacks good enough to start. Don't need an expansion. Well, he's right. Any expansion team's usually going to take a while to get off the ground. So he's right. We don't have 32 great quarterbacks. And that's something we could even discuss. I'm going to actually make a note of that. Kind of breaking down the tiers of NFL quarterbacks, because, NFL Network, guys like that do that, but they're always, in my opinion, wrong. They're usually and that's not me sounding arrogant. That's just the way it is. They just don't look good. They're not good. So you've got, you could very well divide this. Like Joe Flacco just got traded out to the Broncos. What do y'all think of that? Is Joe Flacco one of those, I wouldn't say elite quarterbacks, but he did win a Super Bowl that was, yes, carried by the Ravens defense, but, where would you rank him among the 32 NFL quarterbacks? Where should he be ranked? Was he good enough to get paid that much? Was he good enough to become the franchise or the new franchise quarterback for the Denver Broncos? John Elway's trying to do another experiment like he did bringing in Peyton Manning back in 2011, 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. That's something to definitely kind of keep in mind. So the tiers of NFL quarterbacks, that is definitely something that we will discuss in the future. Comic Dude 45, any college football moments you saw this year that could potentially be set to Titanic music? And if you guys haven't seen, I'm sure everybody has, the videos of, like, for example, the Patriots comeback against the Falcons, Alabama's win over Georgia in the national championship, set to the Titanic music. I think it's My Heart Will Go On or something like that. It gives you chills. It's funny, first off, but it does give you chills if you're just an overall sports fan. That's a tough question for anything like that, because I'm thinking back to the college football playoff. You want to put it on the biggest stage. The national championship was a blowout. The 2 college football playoff games were blowouts. I'm trying not to go back to New Year's 6 bowl games. None of them were really that exciting for the most part. You had the Rose Bowl, Fiesta Bowl. Trying to think what else. You had the Sugar Bowl. None of those were riveting by any means. Tons of solid games this year, without a doubt. I'm going to get back to that. I'm actually going to make another note of that. That's a great question. Not off the top of my head, Comic Dude 45, but I do like that question. And something that maybe I might even try to get into, make a video of that myself. Probably not. Prince says Jake Bentley's coming next year. He deserves his own franchise. Alabama will never get a pro team. Not enough paved roads. Uncle Lou on the roll tonight. Yeah, Prince, hard to play an NFL game at a NASCAR stadium as well. that's another thing. You've got to decide where these teams are going to be playing if you decide to expand. That's a very difficult thing to do and decide on. Colin Kaepernick just became one of the top 5 highest paid quarterbacks ever, $100 million, or $1 million plus. Uncle Lou coming from that. Emperor from the worst NFL quarterback currently employed is Blaine Gabbert. I say that as a Titans fan. I'm sorry. Yeah. Well, Titans, man. I had a good friend of mine. Maybe it was a relative. I remember coming out of college, he said that Marcus Mariota was not going to do anything in the NFL. I was just kind of straying away a little bit because of Mariota going down with an injury. I firmly believe that the Titans would have made the playoffs had Mariota not been out with an injury. And in that final game of the season against the Colts, the winner going to the playoffs, facing the Texans. And I think the Titans, having home field advantage in that game, had Mariota been healthy, would have made the playoffs. But he said that Marcus Mariota wasn't going to be anything coming out of college, that he was not going to fit in any NFL system. He was too small. He just wasn't going to be able to do anything. And that was, Marcus Mariota came out of college in 2014, 2015, and has done extremely well for the Titans. I mean, nearly got to the playoffs this year, got into the playoffs the year before that. He has kind of rejuvenated this Titans franchise and made them a lot better. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on what he had to say. And maybe that's another thing we could talk about as well, are quarterbacks that, maybe we had low expectations for coming out of college that maybe exceeded our expectations, or vice versa. Teams that, or quarterbacks that came out with high expectations and ended up being major flops and disappointments in the NFL. Let's see what else we've got here. Matt Ryan, top half of quarterbacks or bottom half? And bottom half says Uncle Lou. So he's ranking them at least 17th or below among all starting NFL quarterbacks as of right now. Size doesn't matter in both football and other things. Comic Dude 45. Matt Ryan, he says his bottom half of the NFL, quarterback-wise. And this is good discussion. This is great discussion. I mean, I'm going to actually, after we do this live stream tonight, I will sit down and rank every single NFL quarterback. Top half would be 16 or above. Bottom half would be 17 or below. Ranking them 1 through 32. And I would include, like, for example, in the case of the Tennessee Titans, I would throw Marcus Mariota in there and not Blaine Gabbert. Teams that are your franchise quarterbacks. I'll do that. We'll sit down. That'll be our next, one of our biggest live stream discussions. Or I might cut a video for that entirely, just separately, and y'all make sure to keep your eyes out for that. But I would put Matt Ryan right about middle. Wouldn't put him quite in the bottom half yet. I mean, he was in the running for. Did he? I don't even know if he won. I can't remember if he won or if he was in the running for MVP that year they went to the Super Bowl. Lost to the Patriots, of course. They had one of the most dynamic offenses. Took a major step down the following year, and I credit a lot of that to just the change in offensive coordinator and the struggles that they had on the offensive side of the ball. Mina has asked me this just about every time we've shot a video this week. Do I see Oklahoma and Alabama playing each other in the national championship? I actually responded the first time. I didn't get a response from her. But I reiterate again, no, Oklahoma and Alabama will not play in the national championship next year because, as Uncle Lou said, to play in the national championship, you have to win a playoff game. Oklahoma has struggled to do that, obviously losing to Alabama this year, losing to Georgia the year before. And I don't think Oklahoma is a playoff team going into the 2019 season. I think they will be in contention. I'm not saying they're going to go from playoff contender to an 8-win team or a 7-win team, but they will not, I do not believe, make the college football playoff this year, despite the talent that's returning, despite getting Jalen Hurts at quarterback. I think they're going to be in contention. I think they will probably be the top of the Big 12, but the Big 12 is getting tougher, first off. And I just don't think this is the year for Oklahoma. Now, I didn't think that last year either. I didn't think, you lose Baker Mayfield. I mean, that, Lincoln Riley has surprised me year in and year out, has really exceeded my expectations year in and year out as head coach of Oklahoma. Maybe he does that again this year, but this just does not feel like a college football playoff year for Oklahoma. And if they did make the playoff, they would not make the national championship, in my opinion, because they'd probably have to get by somebody like an Alabama in the semifinal game, or a Clemson, or a Georgia again, or somebody like that. And I just do not see that happening. Emperor of Rome, the most underrated starting quarterback is Matthew Stafford. And Matthew Stafford, I feel for him because he is a good quarterback. I would agree, probably very underrated. Does not get enough credit because of the team that he has been put on, the Lions. I mean, he needs to ask for a trade, man. I mean, I feel for the Lions franchise, and I like their new coach in Matt Patricia, former Patriots defensive coordinator. I think he's got that team going in the right direction. We saw towards the end of the season how the Lions were starting to buy into his system. I mean, any coach that learns under Bill Belichick is going to bring kind of a strict style of football to wherever he decides to coach next. And I don't think those Lions players were prepared for that, but he kind of, I think they kind of slowly bought into it. But Matthew Stafford just doesn't have the tools around him. He had Calvin Johnson for a long time. Weren't able to get anywhere. I don't think the Lions have made it to the divisional round of the playoffs. Maybe they did, but lost. They haven't made it past. Certainly haven't made it past the divisional round, if they've even made it there, since Stafford came to be their quarterback in 2008, 2009. It's been a little over a decade. And but he does put up some very solid numbers. He doesn't have the team around him to help him out. And of course, all falls on the quarterback, despite how well, I wouldn't say he's been like one of the elite, but has played fairly well. Very underrated, as Emperor of Rome said. Comic Dude 45. The way I see it, it's a bit unfair to fully judge Eli Manning without an adequate offensive line. You can't constantly be forced to make quick decisions because they're more likely to be terrible. Yeah, if you're under pressure, you're going to make some bad decisions. But Eli Manning has won 2 Super Bowls, both against the Patriots. And yes, they had solid teams both of those years, all across the board. Offensive line, wide receivers, defense especially. That was with Tom Coughlin both times, of course, and Tom Coughlin knowing how to coach a defense. But Eli Manning's been in the league for 16 years now, 17 years. There comes a time where even if you have some poor offensive line play, you've got to start to make stuff happen. Now, he's not a mobile quarterback. He's not, but I would rank him middle of the pack, if not lower half of the NFL right now, just because of the way he's been playing. And you've got the tools around him. Now, you got Saquon Barkley, got Odell Beckham, who many are thinking could be traded here very soon. They got Evan Ingram, tight end. Then they have like Sterling Shepard, wide receiver. They've got some very solid talent on the offensive side of the ball. So Eli's got to be able to make it happen with those players. And the Giants, are always one of those teams that can go, 2-14 or 3-13 one year, then bounce back, make the playoffs, or be that wild card team that makes the playoffs and runs all the way to the Super Bowl. They're very unpredictable, and that's kind of what they've been known for over the past decade or so. I would say, especially in their 2 Super Bowl runs where they beat the Patriots. But Eli, he just, to me, he's one of the more inconsistent quarterbacks in the NFL. Certainly nothing like his brother. Let's see, Mitchie3, how you doing? Good to see you. Glad to see that you were able to join us for a little bit. And as I mentioned earlier, I know a lot of people may have missed that when I addressed it. We did not throw this one out on Twitter. We didn't put out the time. That was on me. It's kind of a spontaneous thing. We didn't know what our schedule was going to be like. We found a small sliver of time around 5:30. We were going to have some time, so we decided to jump on and see how we did. So far, we've got 11 people watching. We've had a couple people come and go, so we appreciate you guys joining on short notice around 5:30 on this Sunday night. I hope you all as well have had a very nice weekend. Mike Myrick, what's going on? Always the same thing. I love it. What's going on? How are you? And go Noles. So very good to see you here. Big time Seminoles fan from Mike. So good to see that you're joining the chat. Very consistent here as well. And I will go ahead. We've got the peak viewers right now. I will say we will not be having a live stream on Tuesday. Had a couple of things come up here at school. Some obligations that I've got to take care of. So we will not have a live stream on Tuesday. We'll make up for that, whether we have a live stream tomorrow, whether we have a live stream Wednesday, maybe shoot a couple videos that aren't live streams and post those over the course of the week. I'll find a way to make it up to you guys for sure, but I just wanted to throw that out there where we have the peak number of viewers right now. No live stream Tuesday, but we will make it up to you this week for sure. So apologize for that. It's only Sunday, and I know this week's going to be really hectic, as I'm sure many of you guys know as well. Mitchie3, smash that like button. Appreciate that. We're up to 5. We'd like to get a little bit more. And as always, the super chat's available. We appreciate any contributions we can get from the super chat. Those mean a lot to any YouTuber, especially here. Heisman favorites from Prince. First off, Trevor Lawrence. Second off, Tua Tagovailoa and Jake Fromm at third. That's according to 24/7 Sports. To me, Jake Fromm sitting at third with 550 is too high. Fromm is a solid SEC quarterback. Georgia would not be where they're at right now, I believe, without him. The defense carried them, not carried them, but was a strength for them a couple of years ago. Their running attack, Sony Michel, Nick Chubb, very dominant as well. From a very solid quarterback, but he's not, in my opinion, a Heisman candidate. Not against the likes of Tagovailoa, who's in the same conference as him, and then Trevor Lawrence, who has kind of taken the entire nation by storm. So, a little high for me, according to 24/7 Sports, but I'm not an employee there. Cruz Madrid, I don't know if he's still here, but American or Alliance of American Football or the XFL, which do I think will be better? And right off the bat, I'm going to say the AAF, without a doubt. The XFL is a lot of fun, but the AAF, to me, is a better replication of real football. It's football that, is very similar to college and NFL and has that goal. I mean, there are some rule changes, but the XFL is wild, man. It's going to be really fun to watch. I think if you were just looking for from an entertainment value, XFL is where you're going to want to go. But if you want to watch legit football and some players that are trying to make another name for themselves and try to get themselves back in the league and something that's very similar to what we are used to now with college and NFL, the AAF. I, for one, would like the AAF a little bit more. That's why I think that one's going to be better. And from the reviews that it has gotten, despite just being played for 2 weeks, the AAF is going to have a very long and bright future, I believe. Comic Dude 45, if an AAF team ever goes to New Jersey, they absolutely have to be called the Informants. And that's why I love these live chats, guys. We got some comics out there. Hence the name Comic Dude 45. So good stuff. All right, so we're going to jump into one of my topics real quick. And, of course, we're always going to refer to the chats and anything you guys have to say. One thing, and this kind of strays from football a little bit, but I want to get y'all's take on the All-Star games. Tonight is the NBA All-Star game between Team Giannis and Team LeBron. But what are y'all's opinions on All-Star games? We've got the Pro Bowl in the NFL. We've got the All-Star game in the MLB. This All-Star game tonight in the NBA. Every major pro sports league is going to have some sort of All-Star game in a way. But what are your takes on it? Because here's what I think. And Oregon Ducks football and basketball, good to see you here as well. Want to give you a shout out real quick. But my thing with these All-Star games is that they're extremely pointless, and we've got to find a way to make them a little bit better. Now, going to one's great. You're seeing the best players from that given sport going up against each other, and they're wanting to go out there and have fun. They're not trying to, no one wants to get hurt. They're pretty lax. They just want to have some fun. But you look at, for example, tonight, the NBA All-Star game, there's going to be no defense played. They went to this draft format where LeBron's drafting his players from both conferences. You've got Giannis drafting players from both conferences. So it's not East versus West or anything like that. But what's the point? Yeah, the winning team gets, a little bit of extra cash. So does the losing team, though. There's no benefit in there. There's no benefit in the Pro Bowl for the NFL. There's a little bit of extra money in there, but for those players, mostly that's just that's chump change for the most part. $200,000, that's not too much for them. For us, it's a lot. So what needs to happen to make these All-Star games, more enjoyable for fans or more, because no one cares about the Pro Bowl. No one cares about the Pro Bowl. It doesn't mean anything. Now, in the MLB, National League versus the American League, you look at those two. The winner of that game, the winning team or the winning conference gets, or the winning league, I should say, gets home field advantage in the World Series. That's a big deal. Now, for some of those players, that means nothing because they know their team is not in the hunt for the postseason or to be a World Series team. But for some of those players, that means a lot. And hey, you got the Boston Red Sox or the Los Angeles Dodgers, or occasionally the Cardinals or the Yankees, whoever it may be, that's a big deal. You can get home field advantage for the World Series. But the Pro Bowl means nothing because they play it. And I, for one, believe that the Pro Bowl should be moved to the week after the Super Bowl like it used to be. Hosting it beforehand, and the Pro Bowl needs to be fixed, and it needs to move back to Hawaii, and it needs to be AFC, NFC like it has been. No, none of this, Team Deion versus Team Irvin or whatever it was, Deion Sanders, Michael Irvin, whoever it was. AFC, NFC in Hawaii, week after the Super Bowl. That's how it needs to be. But I don't know. These All-Star games kind of get on my nerves a little bit. Yeah, they're fun to watch. I get to see the best of the best go at it. But to me, the point of it is stupid because no one's trying. And there needs to be a way to make it a little more enjoyable and maybe have these players exert a little more effort. Like I said, no one wants to go out there and get hurt really bad in an All-Star game that means nothing. But they need to find a way to make the incentive and the reward a little bit better for these games. That's just my take. Yeah, Mike Myrick agrees. Pro Bowl sucks. NBA All-Star game is just okay. it's, and there's nothing really you can do about that. The NBA All-Star Game, you take an All-Star break. The MLB takes an All-Star break. You have that game in the middle of that break or towards the end of it. No one's going to take it too seriously. Should they go back to the East-West versus West format? I think they should. I don't necessarily like the draft format. I never liked the draft format in the Pro Bowl either. But that's just kind of my take on it. I think there's got to be a way to fix the format of these All-Star games and make them more enjoyable for the fans and make the incentive better for these players. I mean, it's an honor to get selected without a doubt, especially by, like in the NFL, by the fans and other players. But there's got to be a better way of handling these things. Comic Dude 45, give me the backstory on his username. How he used to make comics when he was 9, but he's never bothered to change the name. But don't ask, the comics were bad. I don't know. I might have to shoot you a direct message here. Might need to see some of these. Might need to see some of these comments or from some of these comics in the future. All right, so we got some good discussion so far. We've had a decent amount of viewers so far for it being a spontaneous live stream. Once again, always your support, always greatly appreciated. Mina says that the Pro Bowl should be held before the second half of the NFL season begins. Not enough time to justify your All-Stars, your Pro Bowlers, and you certainly wouldn't want to risk injury in the middle of your NFL season. It's got to be, I think it should be after the Super Bowl, but certainly not in the middle of the season like they do for NBA and for MLB. But that, no way. I hate to say it. Emperor of Rome, the most overrated quarterback. Back to the quarterback discussion, which I said we will shoot an individual video on or bring that up in a live stream in the future. But the most overrated quarterback is Kirk Cousins. He's never won a playoff game, and yet the Vikings gave him an $84 million contract. Complete bull. Kirk Cousins, he did well in Washington. I'm not going to lie. He kind of rushed onto the scene because, the franchise quarterback many thought for Washington was going to be Robert Griffin III. Many thought that he was going to be kind of the Redskins' star QB. He gets hurt. Kirk Cousins comes in and does a pretty good job and takes over. But you're right. He has yet to win a playoff game, although granted, he has hardly been in the playoffs. This was his first year in Minnesota, and he wasn't able to. They didn't even make it. And then I think he made the postseason, once with the Redskins? I think they lost to the Packers, I think. So he hasn't had the opportunity. Now a lot of that lies on the quarterback. The quarterback's got to be the leader to help them to get there. But, you got to have a defense. You got to have an O-line. You got to have a run game. It's all the pieces got to come together, although the quarterback does get most of the credit or the blame when a team does well or poorly. But yeah, $84 million contract. He's not bad. I would rank him. And we've said this. We haven't discussed one quarterback where we'd rank extremely high. But I'd rank Kirk Cousins top 15 quarterbacks in the league right now. And I know a lot of that comes down to the help that he has. And I thought that he was going to be a great fit in Minnesota. I was very disappointed with the Vikings' performance. They did better with Case Keenum the year before, making it to the NFC Championship game, than they did with Kirk Cousins, a solid running back in Dalvin Cook, who, yes, I know got hurt, and then very solid, wide receiver play, Adam Thielen, Stephon Diggs, Kyle Rudolph at tight end, and a defense that was, pretty dominant for the most part, at least 2 years ago. So Minnesota just kind of tanked this year. Their offense, they fired their offensive coordinator. It really struggled. I would expect more out of them this season. Overrated right now? Yes, you can call him overrated because he has not produced the results that we need to see from Kirk Cousins, but you got to give him time, especially getting fitted into a new system and a new team. Mina says, who do I see winning the Heisman Trophy this year? Like I said, I love talking Heisman. Right now, though, as I've mentioned before, Clemson is my front runner to win the national championship, and right now Trevor Lawrence is my front runner to win the Heisman Trophy, but very, very close behind him is Tua Tagovailoa, without a doubt. Tua, you can argue, should have won it this year. I believe that had he not gotten hurt and struggled down the stretch, those final 2-3 games of the season, he would have won the Heisman Trophy. So I think it's going to be a battle between them, and I would say that those are the top 2 quarterbacks in college football entering 2019. So that's kind of where I stand on that. And as the season progresses, if you've watched us for a while now, that we just sit down and we discuss The Heisman Trophy race at the end of every week or the beginning of every week. We do our big board addressing the top couple games of the weekend. We address teams trending up, trending down, and then we address the Heisman race, usually after about 3 or 4 weeks into the season. And we do that every week leading up until the Heisman Trophy presentation. So, but right now, I would say you've got Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Jonathan Taylor, the running back for Wisconsin. He is thrown in the mix. Wouldn't throw him up there as a front runner, but he is up there. Justin Herbert at Oregon, one of the better quarterbacks in the league. If he can stay healthy, or in college football, I should say, it's not a league per se. So those are all viable Heisman Trophy candidates, and the list could go on and on of Heisman Trophy candidates, and we just have to wait and see how it plays out, because there's always going to be one person that usually kind of comes out and surprises everybody and makes a name for himself. It might be a finalist for the Heisman that we really didn't see coming. You got these big names: Lawrence, Tagovailoa, Jonathan Taylor, Herbert. Who's going to be that guy that comes out? And that's something we can discuss later on. Who's going to be that kind of guy that shows up out of nowhere and makes a name for himself, and by week 9 or 10, we're still talking about him and could be a Heisman finalist, and maybe could snag a Heisman away from a solid quarterback from Clemson or Alabama, someone like that. So that's definitely something like I said, I can talk Heisman talk all day. Sam Ehlinger, though, I know Mina's a big time Texas fan, supports the state of Texas, period. But I don't think Sam Ehlinger is going to win the Heisman, not with the solid quarterback play that we have going on right now. He's a good quarterback. I'm not going to deny that. He is a solid quarterback, but not good enough to win the Heisman Trophy. He is good enough, however, for Texas to be solid this year, compete in the Big 12, and some may say be a dark horse candidate for the college football playoff. And that is a great segue into our second topic, being what justifies a team being back. We've heard the talk, for weeks now, or since the offseason began. Texas is back. Florida is back. A couple of years ago, Miami was back. The U was back. What justifies a team being back? Because, I don't think one good year can justify you saying we're back. You've got to stay consistent. And I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on this. What justifies a team to say we're back? Because you look at a team like look at a team like Colorado. Look at a team like Colorado. A couple years ago they were playing in the Pac-12 championship game. Could Colorado have said they're back? Because the year after that, they failed to make a bowl game. So I think the next 2 years after that they failed to make a bowl game. So, can you really justify what justifies a team being back? I just saw the comment from Broken Ego, lagging a lot. That, like I said, we were having technical difficulties earlier. Something we're going to try to work on down the road. Like I said, we are trying to save as much money as we can to look into getting better equipment, better quality for these videos, which would of course be better viewership for you guys. So we're trying the viewing experience. So we're trying to work our best on that. I apologize if it is lagging or if it's kind of grainy, the picture. I know it's not on my end, but I know it probably is for some of you guys. So we're certainly trying to work on that as best as we can down the road. So I do apologize. But back to what we were talking about, justifying being back. Florida, can they really say they're back? Texas. We'll stick on Texas and then transfer over to Florida. But you look at Texas, who struggled mightily under Charlie Strong. People were saying Texas was back when they opened up the season a couple years ago with that win over Notre Dame. That did not justify Texas being back. And they jumped from unranked to 10th or 12th after that win over Notre Dame. They weren't back. People wanted them to be back. If Texas is good, it's good for college football. I believe that. But they weren't back. Texas was bad that year. They just got a very good win over a Notre Dame team that struggled really, really bad that year. I think it went 4-8 that year. So, Texas comes in, hires Tom Herman. They're making progress. When the Texas Bowl of Missouri, they make a bigger progress in year 2, making the Big 12 championship game, beating Oklahoma in the regular season, and then beating Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Now, could you say they're back? That's 2 years, 2 big-time bowl wins, looking very competitive, strong recruiting classes. Can you say Texas is back? Can you say Florida's back? And I would disagree saying Florida's back because I don't know if Florida ever left. Jim McElwain, look back, 2006, 2007, 2008, the Tim Tebow era, 2009, they were very, very good. Urban Meyer. They were winning national championships. They were consistently the number one team in the country, playing at the highest level you could be. They had, they had Tim Tebow, they had Aaron Hernandez, they had Percy Harvin. They were stacked. Brandon Spikes, if you remember him. They were a very, very talented team. Jim McElwain comes in, and Florida struggled under Will Muschamp. Jim McElwain comes in, but wins back-to-back SEC East titles. Can't beat Alabama, but really during that time, no one could really beat Alabama. Clemson did during that little span. And then Jim McElwain goes 4, and granted, they struggled mightily on offense, and that was one of the major reasons he got fired. But goes 4-7, McElwain's out, Dan Mullen comes in, wins 10 games, including a big-time Peach Bowl win over Michigan. Florida's back. I don't know if Florida ever left because they've been fairly consistent over the past decade. It's 2019, go back to 2009, even go back to, I would say give it 2007, 12 years. They were winning national championships, they were in contention, they had some rough years under Will Muschamp. Jim McElwain got him back to national relevancy. Had Will Grier not gotten caught for his substance abuse there, or performance-enhancing drugs, or whatever it was, they probably would have continued to win, be in contention for the SEC East then. They won the SEC East titles, had a couple bad years. Now they're back to relevancy under Dan Mullen. Did they ever leave? They're back to where they used to be, I think, back in 2007 to 2009 under Tim Tebow and Urban Meyer, but I don't know if they were ever fully gone. So what justifies a team fully being back in your eyes, in a lot of your eyes? That's just something that I would like to hear from. Because people are saying Texas is back. People are saying that Florida's back. People are saying that Miami is on their way back. So you come out with one great year. I'm trying to think of it. Okay, Kansas. Let's say Kansas this year comes out first year under Les Miles and wins 9 games. So they win that, which is not going to happen in my eyes. I don't think it's going to happen. But they come back. They win 9 games. Is Kansas back? Is Kansas back to their 2007 form where they almost went to the national championship game, where they were winning BCS caliber bowl games and were ranked in the top 5? No. No, they're not. One good year does not justify you being back. You might be on the right track, but it doesn't mean you're back. Let's see if you can keep that up for a couple more years, and then we can say, okay, they're back. Because people are going to falter. You're going to have some down years here and there. But if you can consistently compete at a high level and consistently bring the results that are needed, like Alabama, Clemson, so forth, so on, like they do, then you're back. But I think that's the best example I can give is the Kansas example, and kind of where you kind of draw the line on who's back and who's not. Is anyone back besides Alabama and Clemson? Well, okay, that's a good question for Broken Ego. Alabama and Clemson are the best of the best. Georgia was back, in my sense, and Georgia, granted, has consistently competed extremely well. They were. Hate on him, dog on him all you want, but Mark Richt was a good coach. He always could not win the big games at Georgia. Couldn't beat Alabama, couldn't win the SEC titles. But they had their opportunities, couldn't get the job done. But Georgia competed at a very high level. But they're back with Kirby Smart now, landing some of the best recruiting classes in the nation, got them to the national championship game, nearly made the college football playoff again this year, and I would expect them to be in the hunt again this year. Kirby Smart's got them going in the right direction, and I would say Georgia's back from a team that, under Mark Richt, was always usually top 15, give or take, could never win the big games, and then had a couple bad years here and there, 6-6, 7-5, 8-4, somewhere around there. So, is anyone really back besides Alabama and Clemson? Yeah, there are some, absolutely. It's just weird. I mean, everybody has their own interpretation of how that works, and in their mind, who's really back and who's not. Emperor of Rome says being back means that a team is consistently performing at a level that compares them to their historical best. And put that in the dictionary. That's about the best way you can explain it. So historical best. I used that Kansas example. That's kind of where I was going with that. Was Kansas was really, really good, probably best in history back in 2005, 6, 7, where they were in contention for the national championship. Historical best. That's a good way. And Colin 245. Thank you, Webster. And that's why I said put it in the dictionary. That's a great definition of that right there. So I couldn't agree more with that. Mina says, in my opinion, when any college football team says they're back and then they don't make it to a bowl game, or they don't become bowl eligible, it feels like if that team is not back. Well, yeah, obviously. You can't say you're back and then fail to even make the postseason. And if you're going to make the postseason, you got to make a high-level bowl game, you know, high-end bowl game there. Let me get back to this. 1 second here. Trying to fix some technical things here. All right. So yeah, that's kind of justifying the team being back. I've made a couple of notes here of things that I'm going to bring either to the next live stream or cutting. We haven't cut a legit video in a while, and I apologize for that. I know sometimes for people that's a little bit easier. You can watch that video whenever you have the time to do so, whenever you want, wherever you want. And I'm going to try to get back on that. We've always been kind of fishing for ideas, fishing for topics to use for cutting a video, because I know it's February 17th now. We got a ways to go until we can start cranking out videos every single day like we're used to. But what I've got is the Titanic music moments. I think Comic Dude 45 addressed that, and then the tiers of NFL quarterbacks. That is one that I'm actually really excited to jump on and get started on. Is discussing that, ranking every NFL quarterback. And kind of breaking it off of where we got the elite, we got the above average or average, and then so forth and so on. And I think that's something that we're going to address. And I think we'll probably cut a legit video for that. That's one that we can really sit down, take a lot of time with. Once we cut that video, we come back to a live stream and we can discuss that even more as the chat's going on. I think that'll be easier, and you'll get my initial reaction. You'll get my response immediately, not a delayed response like responding in the comments. Mitchie Three's been watching the Daytona 500. I don't blame you. That's a big deal. That's a very big deal. I've never been a huge NASCAR guy, but I like to watch the big ones: Daytona 500, the Indy. Those are the ones that I usually keep my eye on every now and then. So I don't blame you for that. And that's a good idea. Comic Dude 45. If we're doing NFL quarterback tiers, might as well do it for college football quarterbacks, and we could probably break that down even just by conference. Honestly, taking every quarterback in every conference, breaking it down so you got the tiers of the SEC, Big Ten, so forth, so on. That's not a bad idea. We could do the entire college football, but that would be pretty difficult and would probably take a while. So I think we'll do that by conference, and we'll do that college football by conference there. So, and another one that we were going to do was even breaking down the head coaches, ranking each head coach in every conference as well. So I know a lot of people like to see rankings, top 10 rankings, so forth, so on like that. We'll definitely bring that to the table and cut some individual videos for that. So good point. Very good. Going back to the NFL for a second, call me biased, but I think that A.J. McCarron never got a fair shake in the NFL. He looked good in Cincinnati. You're right. Wouldn't call you biased. I know as a Bama fan, you want to stay loyal to your quarterbacks, and you want to see players from your schools do extremely well. But A.J. McCarron, was behind Andy Dalton, who plays well in Cincinnati. And when he was hurt, I did think A.J. McCarron did a pretty decent job there. And Cincinnati has, for a while, had a decent team surrounding it. A.J. Green, when Tyler Eifert was healthy at tight end, he was a big force. I think one of the better tight ends in the NFL when he was healthy. He was very difficult to stop. Had a decent run game, and then defense that wasn't horrible, But Marvin Lewis, Marvin Lewis could just never get the job done in Cincinnati. But A.J. McCarron, you're right, never really got a fair share there. I think, where did he go from Cincinnati to Buffalo, out to Oakland with the Raiders? I mean, he's just been bouncing around too much. But I think any team would be lucky if they would just give him a chance. I don't think he's necessarily a franchise quarterback per se, but he's better than some of these backups that we've got right now, and some of those guys that have subbed in as starters. So you're right. I don't think he got a very fair share. Good point. I don't think he did either. And that's just not me agreeing with you for the heck of it. I truly do believe that. Mina, do I see the number 2 team beating the number 1 team in the national championship next year? It depends on who the 2 team is. I mean, honestly, that's who knows. I mean, we had Alabama as the 1 this year playing Oklahoma, and then Clemson, Notre Dame 2-3. And Clemson was the 2 and annihilated Alabama. It comes down to how those rankings come out. That's why those rankings are very important, though, because you would... I mean, look, the top 4 teams are the top 4 teams. I'm not saying that the 4 teams better to play, easier to play than the 3 team. You know, if you're 1, you're playing the 4. If you're 2, they're playing the 3. But I think in the case of many teams, you want to try to avoid Alabama because despite Clemson being the reigning national champs, you know, Alabama's just that team. And everybody kind of, you know, that's the go-to. Oh, we're scared of the almighty Alabama and Nick Saban. But Clemson is giving a really tough fight for that top spot. But that's too far to kind of determine. I don't know. It's going to depend on who the number 1, number 2 teams are. And I know that's kind of a cop-out answer. It's like predicting a game. But I can't really break that down right now. Comment 245. Something that sometimes drives me nuts is people ripping quarterbacks who struggle by calling them busts or D2 quarterbacks at best. They haven't played or coached the sport, so what do they know? You're exactly right. I mean, people like to believe that they know, some people know the game better than others. I remember, you know, I think for a lot of people, and this might be going off of what, it might not be exactly what you mean. Now, and I know where you're probably coming from in the sense of, as a Rutgers fan, Sikowski, I know, you know, he probably does have quite a bit of potential there, but has struggled. And with the thing that we as fans have to realize, and I think coaches realize too, is when you've got a quarterback that's especially young, you know, as a freshman, especially a true freshman, if you ever have to throw in a true freshman, give them time, guys. I mean, these guys coming out of high school to college, and college to NFL, there are some major jumps there. It's not just an easy transition. So you've got to give these guys time and time to learn the ropes, learn the offense, and going up against some very tough defenses. I mean, in the Big Ten, you're going up against defenses like Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan State, Iowa, Penn State, so forth, so on. And that's just me talking about Rutgers. That's the case for any quarterback, I feel like. So you're right. You don't want to. It's easy for the fans to criticize quarterbacks and players or coaching decisions, but you're not out there on the field. You're not coaching these guys, so you don't know exactly what's going on. I would say there have been quarterbacks that I think have proven a lot of people wrong when they get a lot of criticism early on in their career. Really kind of prove a lot of people wrong down the road. Not saying they've got to go win a national championship, but get a team that hasn't been to a bowl game in a while, get them there. Put up some big stats, break some school records. Take some time to do that. You know, you can't expect immediate success. And that's why I get annoyed sometimes with, and I'm guilty of this sometimes, but with new head coaches. People always get onto a coach in their first year of the school. If they do very poorly, 2-10, 3-8, they don't get to a bowl game. Let's just say that. Miss out on the postseason. They want them out immediately. Give them time. They're dealing with players from the previous coaching regime that, you know, might not fit their system, might not fit their kind of the way they want to run their offense or their defense or whatever. They're bringing in new coaches. It's a big transition, not just for the coaches, but for the players as well. So you've got to give them time. And as frustrating as that is for a fan base and for a university, it usually, I wouldn't say usually, but, you know, a lot of the times it can pay off within 3 to 4 years. And that's something that we as fans have to understand. It's a bigger process, and there's so much more that goes into the game than what we see as fans on every Saturday morning, every Saturday afternoon. Mitchie 3, our draft drought streak will finally come to an end. Talking about Iowa State, of course, it will, in the sense that you've got Hakeem Butler and David Montgomery both going to the NFL, and they will certainly be NFL draft picks. Can't tell you where. I would say Butler could be, so I would put Butler maybe in the 2nd or 3rd round. Montgomery, 3rd, 4th, maybe 5th. Not one of the, well, I take that back. I mean, Montgomery, it's a tough draft class this year. It's very strong. We got a strong quarterback class coming out. We got a strong defensive class coming out. Looking at teams, and that's something we can address later, our draft needs for individual NFL teams. But Montgomery, I would say maybe 3rd round. Butler 2nd or 3rd as well. So yes, Iowa State, though, you're right. The streak will come to an end. Tight end University, that's a very tough call to say as well. I've seen tons of debates on that. I've seen people say Notre Dame. I've seen people say Michigan. I've seen people say Arkansas. And before you jump into Arkansas, they've had solid quarterback or solid tight ends in the likes of, I'm trying to go way back, DJ Williams, Hunter Henry, CJ O'Grady now, AJ Derby turned quarterback turned tight end who had a fairly successful NFL career. So, Chris Gregg, I mean, that's a tough call. You will never have a definite answer for any school to be called tight end U, wide receiver U, defensive back U. The argument will always rage on, and that's just the way it is. So that's a tough call, Mitch. And I can't give you a solid answer. I gave you a couple of schools I thought could be considered tight end U, but at the end of the day, there's never how you determine that. You could base it off of the draft class, like how many tight ends have been drafted in the past decade from a certain school, tight end production, recruits, whatever you want to do. But the argument is just never going to come to an end. Emperor of Rome, what changes does the NFL have to make to grow in popularity overseas? Well, you look at the NFL right now, and they're doing a fairly good job of having their international games. They have some games in London every year, I think 3 or 4. They usually have a game in Mexico, Mexico City. I think, people have taught if you really want to try to get some popularity overseas, is expanding and throwing a team overseas, like having a team play in London or at least overseas. Now, I don't think that's the answer. And there were talks for a very long time about the Jaguars potentially moving to London. I think the Jaguars are the only team that has played in London, I think, every time they've started that. That's usually the team that's very consistent of playing over there. For the NFL to continue to grow, period, I think they really, really need to look into being consistent. And what I mean by that is the way they are officiated, by the way, people get bored, and you can't help this, but people get bored seeing the same teams win over and over again. You've got a dynasty, and they like the Patriots right now. People hate the Patriots because they are extremely good and are most times competing for the Super Bowl. A lot of people don't like the Golden State Warriors or any team LeBron's on in the NBA just because they are consistently in the running for a championship. The NFL can't change that. You can't rig, I'm sure they have in the past, but you can't rig games or prevent teams from winning. But I think consistency on the officiating side and the way the game is played and conducted is going to not only help them overseas, but it's going to help them here in the United States, which is their biggest, the kind of where they need to be focusing on right now. That's the biggest place they need to be focusing on is right here in America, where all these games are being played for the most part. I know they have their international games, but I don't know. That's a great question. I think the easy answer would be to expand and see a team go overseas. But I don't know if I wouldn't do that. If I were Roger Goodell, if I was sitting in the commissioner chair, I don't know if I could bite the bullet and send a team over to London or Germany or wherever they want to host an NFL team. The thing is, people enjoy football. They got good crowds in Mexico City. They've got good crowds. I mean, Mexico City, I think they're big time Raider fans for the most part. A lot of the people in Mexico City are big time Oakland Raider fans. But in London, in overseas especially, they're big time soccer guys. That's their sport. Our football is their soccer. Football for us is soccer for them. That's their love, and that's the one they're passionate about. Sometimes I don't think you're going to be able to overtake that. I don't think we would ever be able to beat out soccer in a place like Europe and Asia, and really anywhere overseas. That is the biggest sport for them, for the most part. Don't think you're going to be able to beat that out here, but you never know. You never know. Flight Gaming, how do I feel about Wake Forest? Of course, I'm not diving into any predictions right now. Wake Forest, for the most part, has continued to prove me wrong. When I have predicted them, I would expect another, especially with a fairly young team. I know they lose quite a bit of production on the offensive side of the ball, the Demon Deacons, but I would expect at least another bowl game out of Wake Forest. Like I said, not going into predictions yet. Haven't really broken down Wake Forest. Like I said, we're breaking down a lot of teams right now. This is the time when we do this kind of stuff, really analyzing and studying these teams. Haven't gotten there yet, and even if I had, I wouldn't kind of divulge that much information on my thoughts on them. We got to save that for those predictions when we really break down every individual Power 5 team. But Wake Forest, I would expect to once again be middle of the pack ACC making a bowl game. I would assume. Minchie 3. I remember when Arkansas did that lateral. That was Hunter Henry to Alex Collins. And that game for Arkansas prevented Ole Miss from winning the SEC West. Of course, that game Arkansas beat Ole Miss in. That was double overtime or one overtime, I think. Arkansas choosing to go. But that was one of the more, I think, underrated games of that year. I think it was 53-52 or 52-51 was the final score of that game. And for Arkansas, that game meant nothing. They weren't in the running for the SEC West or any national attention there. But it prevented Ole Miss from winning the West. Alabama clinched the West, won the SEC, and I think ended up winning the national championship that year, if I'm not mistaken. So that was huge because Ole Miss was in the driver's seat because they had beaten Alabama, a couple of weeks previous. Had they won the West, who knows who would have won the national championship that year, and if an SEC team would have even gotten in. Because I can't remember who Alabama played, probably Florida that year in the SEC title game. That was still with Jim McElwain, I believe. And Ole Miss at the time of playing Arkansas in that game was only in the top 15, or if not outside the top 15, 18th, somewhere around there. So who knows what could have happened. That lone play altered history, not just for poor Ole Miss fans, but for Alabama and for the entire college football history. Who knows what could have happened. So, yeah, that was a very big deal. One of the top plays of that year by far. One of the more underrated games of that year. I think that was all the way back in 2015, I think it was. So, it was about 3 or 4 years ago. So, we've had some very, very good discussion here. What bowl game did Arkansas go to in 2011? That's another question. About to close things out. But that was from Mitchie 3. 2011, they were still under Bobby Petrino at the time. Of course, he getting fired. 2012 was when they were under John L. Smith. Went 4-8. Arkansas went to the Cotton Bowl. That was the year that Colin Klein and Kansas State were up there towards the top of the rankings. Ended up faltering a little bit. Arkansas played Kansas State in the Cotton Bowl in a top 10 matchup. I think it was 6 versus 8, somewhere around there. And Arkansas ended up winning that game against Kansas State, finishing, I believe, in the top 5 of the AP poll that year. And then, of course, things fell apart for the Razorbacks when Bobby Petrino got fired after his scandal. And really, things have never been the same for Arkansas since then. That was kind of the peak. If Arkansas ever wants to be back, as Emperor Rome said, you're going to look back at when they were historically their best. That would probably be historically Arkansas's best. I know you could go back earlier than that, but they haven't won a national championship since, if you want to even consider a national championship, since like 1964. Historically, their best, the Bobby Petrino era, 2010, 2011. Very short-lived, but for Arkansas to ever be back, that would be the one you'd compare it to. So that was the bowl game that I believe they went to in 2011, the Cotton Bowl against Kansas State in a top 10 matchup there. Like I said, it takes me a while to think about a lot of this stuff. But, we're this is all straight out of the head. Not even using the machine, believe it or not. So, thank you guys for joining us tonight on the Sunday night live stream. As I mentioned, I apologize for not getting this out on Twitter earlier, or announcing it at all, rather. Like I said, it was very spontaneous. It's going to be a very, very, very busy week here for me. But we appreciate you guys jumping on with us, bringing your questions, bringing your topics. We had some good discussion. We've got a lot of feedback and a lot of video ideas to come later. We need to shoot a couple of videos. I need to shoot a couple of videos for you guys so you can actually watch them whenever you want. Get back to the normal routine. Emperor of Rome, good seeing you. Thank you for joining us. But we will have those videos coming out very, very soon. As I mentioned, no live stream Tuesday night. I'll throw that out on Twitter as a reminder, but no live stream on Tuesday. We should be back to normal on Thursday and hopefully have a video somewhere in between there to make up for the missed day. So as always, we thank you guys for joining us. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe, and we hope you guys have a very good start to this next